Testing, 1, 2, 3. Take a seat anywhere. Go ahead.
Are we in your way if I sit on the left seat?
Oh no, it's fine.
Okay.
You can just spit in here.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Because I'm looking into warrant insurance. It's just for years. You put like more money into this. Yeah.
Here. I'm trying to get the live stream started.
And then today, and I'm doing yoga like crazy. Are you going to? Then on Saturday.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really good.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, I know Ashley. Yeah. Do you?
She's a co-founder of this as well.
Okay, yes. That's kind of how I kind of started.
Glad.
Technical difficulties.
Leaving it.
Sorry, guys. I think I might have to put it on.
I don't know. I know it's video now. I know it. I know it, but I can have it handy.
There, okay. So I just want to give a big thank you out to our sponsors. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't been able to have this wonderful space and put tonight together. So a big thank you to Ellipsis Digital, Engine 7.4 for the venue of the London Roadhouse. Also, thank you to Steam Whistle for providing refreshments today. And then Ashley Gilbert for providing the wonderful placemats that were out there that you guys are filling out before coming up. And then a big thank you to my friend Sandra from Life is Beautiful Photography, who's going to be taking pictures of the event today. And also a huge thank you to you guys for coming out tonight. I really appreciate you taking the time, especially in this snowy weather. I really appreciate it. So please feel free to take pictures and share your experience online and on social media. We're asking that you use the hashtag LTUX, LTD, and please feel free to tag us. We'd really love to see the meetups from your perspective. So a bit about the co-founders. So Ashley Keller wasn't able to make it tonight. So she's actually had a really great opportunity to travel to Winnipeg for work, but she put a lot of effort into making tonight possible. So, and I think she's actually going to try watching us through Google Hangouts tonight. So I'd like to give like a round of applause to her because she's helped put this all together. So Ashley is the Associate Manager of Design Strategy and Research at London Life. And I'm Kathleen McGage. I'm a UX architect at London Life, and Ashley and I work together. So her and I, through work, are really passionate about UX, and that's kind of how this meetup started. So you can follow Ashley on Twitter, and you can follow me as well. So we have a really fun night planned out for you guys tonight, and there's a lot to go over in a little bit of a short amount of time, so I'm going to try to go a little bit quick. But just to give you a bit of an agenda, we're going to have a brief overview of Ladies That UX as an international meetup group and why we started this group. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about the importance of mentorship. Then we have a really awesome talk from our special speaker, Stephanie Smith, on what is critique. And then after, we're going to have a planning and brainstorming session. We can just kind of go downstairs afterwards, put on some music, can help yourself to some of the refreshments, and we can just kind of socialize. And there's a couple questions that I have listed out down there that you can answer with like the post-its that you have in your goodie bags. And you'll also see there's like little voting stickers too. So if other people have put an idea on that you like and you want to vote for it, we can do it like that. And it's just to help us better customize what this event means, what this meetup group means to everyone here. So Ladies That UX, it was founded in Manchester in 2013 by UX superstars Lizzie Dawson and Georgie Bottomley. They both used to work together, and one night they went out for a couple drinks and they were just kind of talking about the industry, and they noticed that across the industry, there was a real lack of women in mid-level and more senior roles. And they kind of noticed they didn't really have any role models. So they wanted to change that. And so just that very night, over the glass of wine, they started an Eventbrite meetup event and kind of spread it out through Twitter. And it was like a huge success. So they wanted to create a friendly and welcoming and collaborative community, and they truly succeeded. So Ladies That UX now has over 45 different groups across worldwide. And there's a really fun fact here. So London, Ontario is the second meetup group in Canada. First being, the dog is very happy and excited about that. So first being Vancouver, and London, Ontario was the first one in Ontario. So that's really exciting. So hooray for us. So who is this group for? Anyone with an interest in UX. Now, I think most people here know what UX is, but I've posed the question, what is UX? And I think this is a really funny thing because even within the UX industry, there's a lot of debate about what this really means. So UX stands for user experience. Now, this is a poster that I really love. It's from Eric Flowers, and it kind of explains how UX is typically seen, and then how UX wants to be seen. Now, I know for a fact there's some people here that aren't doing like interface design and visual design, but they're doing requirements gathering and feature writing and things like this. So the point is, even if UX isn't in your title, if you're working in the tech industry, the marketing and design, you're likely touching on UX. So there's a ton of user experience roles that a person can fulfill. Some are whole jobs, some are whole careers, and then others are more tactical roles that we just kind of move in and out of. So why did we start this group? Personally, I've been working in the tech and marketing and communications field for over 10 years. And throughout my career, I've noticed a big gender imbalance within the industry. So I've always been working in London. So these are a couple of different jobs that I had. So I worked for a software company, and there was 12 people working there. And out of those 12 employees, there was only 2 women on staff. For a small agency, again, there was 12 employees, and in my situation, there were only 3 women on staff. And then in my last role, I worked in a large IT department of over 40 people, and there were only 4 women in our department. But luckily for me, a wonderful change happened, and in the role that I'm currently in, I'm on a team of very talented individuals of all various roles, and there's like a great balance of men and women on our team. So for me, it wasn't until I experienced that I really realized how important it was as a female to have other female role models. So to me, seeing other women in leadership positions was very inspiring. And I really love this quote that Georgie Bottomley that started Ladies at UX had come up with: if you can't see it, you can't be it. So we started this group because we knew there are a lot of other ladies out there working in or interested in the UX field, and we wanted to meet them. So now I want to talk a little bit about the importance of mentorship. This is a quote from Whoopi Goldberg. We're here for a reason. I believe a bit of the reason is to throw little torches out to lead people through the dark. So 95% of female entrepreneurs who enter or launch their own startup or hold a leadership position in a startup company feel that having an advisor or having a mentor is a key factor to their success. And also, 80% of female entrepreneurs feel that having another woman as their advisor or mentor has made a significant impact on their career. So with that being said, I think it's fair to say that mentorship is important. It's one of the keys to success. So just a little bit about advice on how to find a mentor. So first, you need to consider what you want mentoring on. It could be on a specific aspect of the industry, such as like public speaking or interaction design. You just need to find what thing it is that you want help with. And then think about who you know that's really good at that and who you admire. Then you want to consider people that you know. Now, this could be people at your work or at your school, Or it could be people you don't even know. It could be famous people or professionals that are kind of like rock stars in the industry. Then you can also use programs at your place of work or school to establish mentoring relationships. So this is going to be more of like a formal mentorship. And if you don't have those things, you can contact the person directly, or you can observe them. That's one of the favorite things I like to do. Is I look for someone that I find really inspiring. I'll take them out to lunch, kind of talk to them about what I need help with, or how they solved a particular problem. Or there's people online that I just follow, like through Twitter, and learn that way. But a really important thing here is I don't think you necessarily need to go up to someone and say like, hey, will you be my mentor? Because I think people kind of feel awkward about that. I think it's just something that it's like a relationship that just kind of grows and happens. And a really important thing is, and I think it's in another slide, is just to be really thankful. And after you realize that someone's been a mentor to you, just thank them for the mentorship that they've provided. I want to point out here that, so in that type of situation where a relationship just kind of formed, that's more of an informal mentorship. And you can also have formal, which is more like that you would see through school or at work. And as I mentioned, give back to your mentor, so be genuine and be thankful. And consider being a mentor yourself to someone else. You'll learn as much as they do. And to that last point, it really does, I think anyone at any stage, like I have an 8-year-old daughter, I feel like she can be a mentor to others. If there's something that you're really good at, it's very likely that there's someone else that wants to be good at it too, and you'd be able to help them out. And another point here is be open to serendipity. So it was very serendipitous that I met our special speaker, Stephanie, today, who's going to be speaking for us today, and she's a wonderful colleague, friend, and mentor to me. So this is a great segue into bringing Stephanie up to have her talk. So just a little bit about Stephanie. She's a design strategist and manager at Dublin, and she also works at the IIT Institute of Design. Stephanie helps teams and organizations identify new opportunities and develop innovation capabilities. Her focus is on competitive growth, strategies, and design-led innovation across multiple industries. So she's served more than what I have listed here, but here's a couple: healthcare, CPG, consumer banking, and equipment manufacturing industries. So if you can just give a round of applause to Stephanie. Thank you. You're welcome. You too.
Nobody else for this. Hi, everyone. Hi. Okay, very touching. Yeah, it's sort of interesting that the topic that Kathleen has spoken about is mentorship. So it's something that I never thought much about as a woman. And I read recently, I don't know if you guys read, I think it was in either Harvard Business Review or Wall Street Journal or one of those, about why women don't succeed, don't have higher ambition as men. And actually there's a study done that said that as women age in their careers, their ambition levels start to fall more than their male counterparts. And they weren't sure why that happened. And one of the reasons, the conclusions that they came to in the study, was that it was because women lacked role models at the right ages that were female to help show them where they could go. And so it's sort of interesting because they did look at things that were structural within those organizations, and they looked at other things that you might think were reasons for a barrier for women not to have that ambition. Maybe they left the workforce to raise a family or things like that. And they found that mentorship was actually one of the main reasons this happened. So just the fact that you guys are here forming a community together, second one in Canada, first in Ontario, is incredible, and I think it's very special and a very timely moment for this particular industry as it starts to grow and develop. So you guys actually are all like pioneers in a way. So a little preamble. And one of my mentors, when I was in grad school, so if you remind me of one of my mentors, who is the only female executive at an all-male startup. They had some women, but it was mostly in their sales function because it was a men's clothing startup in Chicago that became quite big and got acquired by a large retail clothing company. And she was a mentor to me when I was starting in this industry, and has since continued into like C-levels for marketing and research and development positions. And it's just like, I should tell her thank you. Thank you for reminding me of doing this. So anyway, we all have them. But tonight, the actual topic of my speech is about critique and design critique. And this is a topic that I studied in detail when I was in graduate school and did some research, and found that there actually wasn't a ton written on this as a subject. And so I want to tell you a little bit about this. I was asking Ashley and Kathleen what they wanted to do tonight. This is one of the topics that they chose. So who knows? Oh wait, how does this go? Do I just push it? How do I forward through this?
Oh, I think if you just press it.
Ah, there we go.
I'm gonna move the chair. That was a good time.
Okay. So does anyone familiar with the term design critique or use it? Show of hands. Anybody knows this? Okay. Yeah. Cool. Great. Perfect. I was afraid that it would be like a little bit of like a junior type, like everyone, we already know all of this, so it makes it a little bit better. But one of these interesting techniques that designers use, UX design, visual design, graphic, etc., uses is design critique. And so one of the things that I want to talk about is, first of all, what is it, and why could it be important for your professional development day to day? So design critique is basically two things. One of them is sort of feedback. So when you're working on projects, you might ask for feedback or get feedback at review sessions or things like that from people who are either on your teams or are your bosses about the work you're doing. And so design critique in that sense is actually feedback about what you're doing. And it's also a little bit of evaluation on what you're doing, saying, this is good, this is bad, this is what we should keep, these are the things that we should not keep and or change. And so what happens with critique is actually at the heart of design, art, and architecture. So folks, actually, are any of you guys formally educated designers? Okay, so it's like the same people that raise their hand about when design critique, right? Okay. So when you're in school, being formally trained in design, art, and architecture, this is a common part of the studio curriculum that they have. So you sort of work on projects, and then during the course of the project, you'll have different forms of critique where they'll put your work up and get feedback about that, and also be evaluated that with grades or with juries or things like that. And so in this sense, it's really at the heart of formal design programs, and is a common practice for people who are studying that.
It's a little slow.
You might have to move the mouse on the screen.
Oh,
Yeah, that's weird.
thank you.
I realized that.
Very observant. And what's sort of interesting about this practice is that depending on where you learn it, that's how you learn how to perform it. So it's sort of institutionalized in a way as almost like a ritualistic tradition. It might be hard. So I'll preface this and say that I give this to talk to designers, so folks who sort of know what it is. But basically, when you're in the studio environment and you're learning how to do this, there's sort of a certain way that people give feedback. And some people, there's a little bit right on this. Some people will give you feedback, like your teachers, right? And actually, if you've been in any kind of school situation or a boss situation that's evaluating your work as a creative professional, you probably have gone through this. And if they've been formally trained, they're basically using the techniques that they learned from someone somewhere, either in their school and they were formally learning this, or from folks who they've worked with in the past or mentors of theirs, things like that. And so they bring that in there, just like if you're having a conversation with someone about something, they're going to bring in their own filters in the way that they're used to doing this. But what happens is that people have, so people have different ways of doing this, and that can conflict at sometimes. But to back up just a second, there's actually what we call critique, there's actually 4 different types. And think about, you guys probably do this already, and just don't sort of think about it with this frame. So if you think about it it can be formal or informal or public and private. So what we're calling desk critique is like if you're working on a piece and you're saying, okay, I'm working on this flow, I'm working on this design, and I want my colleague, Kathleen, to come over and take a look at it, because I think I need another set of eyes on this to see what's going on. That's sort of what we're calling this, like, desk critique. Very informal, it's private. You're not like, showing it to everybody, but you're just sort of getting some one-on-one or some guidance on that. So if you want to go a little bit more formal with that, you're sort of like a pinup critique idea, which is where you put your designs on the wall, your work on the wall, and then folks sort of come through and more formally, you talk about what your work is, and then they give you feedback on what that is. And they might say, why did you do this, or did you change these elements, or things like that. Then if you get a little bit farther into the public space, there's like juries and reviews. And these are the things, like if you're in school where you might have a panel of judges and you have to present your work, and then they give you feedback on this. A little bit of a higher stakes environment. It can actually be like super nerve-wracking if you're not really used to getting that type of feedback as well. And then finally, on the informal spectrum is this idea sort of an open house, where it's like, you're just getting all of your work up, people are kind of coming through, they're looking at it, but there isn't as much of a sense of evaluation when they're actually looking at the work that you have. So in design, there's actually like 4 different types of design critique, which if you are a designer or a UX designer, then sometimes you only think of it in one way. There's actually it happens in multiple different ways. And so wherever people go to school, they do sort of learn this method, and they learn how to do it differently. So you end up having people who can give feedback and evaluation differently. And this doesn't actually only apply to the work that you're doing. I think because as a creative professional, it can be a little bit different, because the expectations and the guidelines are a little bit fuzzier because it's a more creative pursuit. But if you think about it from any type of evaluative thing at work, right, like a performance review or project review or things like that, that also could be considered a type of critique or feedback. But in design in particular, there are definitely some commonalities that if you're giving feedback to other people about the work that they're doing, that is good practice. And so even if you don't think about it in a formal way, like I'm giving critique or this is design critique, and you're just trying to improve your work, there are a couple tips that you can use that can help make that process a little bit easier. Because sometimes as creative professionals, like you're sort of close to your own work, and it's difficult that sometimes to get feedback from people who are giving it to you if you don't agree with them. And on that note, really the aim, sort of if you think about it, is to make the work better. It says the work down here, sorry, it's hard to see at the bottom. And so the aim is essentially the same. So whether you're the one presenting your work to someone else, or someone else is evaluating or giving you feedback, the aim is really to make the work better, which kind of makes it different than art in a way, right? It's not necessarily just your own expression of how you're interpreting the world, but it's about something that's a little bit more practical for the aim of design. And so in that sense, it's really important not to get tied up in that with your own ownership, and to understand and keep in mind that you're not the work, which is kind of the golden rule. You're not the work. And so this, I used to think this would help me a lot when I would start to put my work up, because then you can say there's an objective line I can draw about the work that I'm doing, and it's not wrapped up in who I am as a person or the way that I'm owning this thing that I've created. Especially if you're creating stuff that's new. Like all of us are involved in creating things. That's very tricky. Okay, so what does this have to do with business and what you guys are doing? So the other thing about this is that, sometimes you'll find people who are working on things at, on your project or whatever, and they're kind of like stuck and they don't know what to do. And it's like hard, you're like, I don't know how to tell them like what's going on, or start to solicit some of their ideas. And they don't feel good, It can be really, really difficult, and they can get really, really stuck with what they're working on. And this is actually an opportunity to practice critique. And this is where if you have a regular practice of critique as a designer, in any of those ways, formal or informal, public or private, that you can help move the work forward and help bring people out of their shells a little bit and start to get better and to get aligned on the same page. Because the thing is that designers, we're working on, we don't want to ship it until it's perfectly ready. And if you're working, most of us have to work in an agile environment now anyway, and show things that are in progress, but there's sort of a level of completion. And so if you take a step back and you do want to open up other people to that process, then giving them the permission and having an institutionalized or sort of a regular practice of critique and help them get unstuck to be prepared for those times that they're doing the demos or for the other deliverables that are part of your job. So it gives people this permission to be imperfect, to have works in progress and to share what they're working on. Because one, they're not separate, they're separated from the work. You don't own, it's what you're doing is not part of your identity. It's part of the aim to make this work better and to complete what you're doing in the project. And it helps create a guide and it solicits help from others to help continue to move forward. Okay, so I kind of alluded to this earlier, a little bit more of a reveal, but these are some of the tips that are, I think, important best practices when you're practicing design critique. And actually, recently there was a blog post that was reposted from Airbnb. This one from Airbnb. No, Facebook. Facebook about, right?
That you shared with me?
No, that Ashley said. Facebook, right?
Yeah.
I think it was Facebook, and it was about like different best practices for how they actually perform critique at their own organization, which are very similar to these. So one of the things is if you're actually, let's say you're working on a project and you're like, okay, I'm going to get eyes on this first. I don't typically do this. I usually just show it when I think it's ready, but I'm kind of stuck. Something that's very easy to do is to ask someone to look at it, but to tell them what you want feedback on. So you sort of set it up where you say, okay, this is what I'm working on. This is how I made the choices that I made, and I would like your feedback on X, Y, and Z. And that way, they know exactly what to give you feedback on, and they can separate the things that you need feedback on because they're more complete versus the things that you're still working on and figuring out. And that way, it gives them a sense of what they can give you some feedback and evaluation on. That preserves that in-process work and also keeps them from derailing the whole conversation about like random stuff that you're still working on. And observing and listening is really important too. So if you're giving critique to someone else, asking open-ended questions, listening to how they're discussing their work, and observing them is also really useful technique rather than sort of just opining on your philosophy of what they're doing or the details of what that is. Starting with the positive is always really good. They talk about the sandwich technique when you're giving like people feedback. Have you guys heard that? When you're giving talking to people, it's like say something good, then say the thing that is not as good, and then end with something good. Which in design critique in those formal situations tends not to happen. I think more often than not because there's a little bit of there can be a little bit of a dynamic which is teacher and student I know better and you need to learn how to do this and get a thick skin and all that stuff. It's kind of bullshit because really you just want to make everything better. You don't want to tear the person down, forever, which sometimes happens. It's ridiculous. So being positive is not bad. Not that you should always use the sandwich method if it's if you have nothing good to say, but it's not a bad thing. You want to also say the important stuff first, so that you can make sure that that you get it out, that you address it, rather than sort of leading up to it, get to that positivity. And finally, separate yourself. Super hard, but super important. Okay. Also, when this happens, it can happen at any point in the project. So in the beginning, it might be more one-to-one. It might be oh, I'm working on something, I need some help, or some ideas, or thoughts, and feedback. I'm just going to ask Captain Bye. But in the middle, you may solicit it from multiple people, or have reviews with folks and things like that. And same as at the end. So it's not there's one certain place where you can only different times of the project. And the other thing is, which could be sort of interesting, is you can actually use it with clients that you might have. If you're working with folks, if you're working together, if you're working on projects together, it could be a really useful tool to help air some of those creative differences or continue to push that work forward. It doesn't have to be confined to your own team. And basically, bottom line, you just have to sort of separate yourself. Remember the golden rule: you're not the work. Make the expectations clear. And then that would be great. Because if you don't, if everyone's on the same page, it feels heart-wrenching. When I put this together, it's I know that's exactly that's a cool Lego thing. That's sort of exactly how it feels when you're putting your own work up in front of others and getting feedback on it. It's really scary. And that's it. I guess, I don't know, do you like questions?
Yeah, does everyone have any questions?
Oh, it was useful.
Well, I think it was really useful.
Yeah, and if you can share my like contact info if you want, if like, you want to reach out or have questions or whatever. That's fine. You don't have to.
All right. Well, thanks, Stephanie. Sure. Awesome. So now, if no one has any questions, or we don't, yeah, if there's no questions or anything, then we can head downstairs. And there's a couple questions that posted. I mentioned they posted on the wall. We can kind of go down there, and you can use your post-its and write down your ideas, and we can talk about how we want this group to go. What you want out of it, what you don't want, and things like that.
Actually, that's hard to cover. Sorry. Well, I would say 10 years here. I have done freelancing before. So, again, where I lived in Missouri was a much area, so it's kind of more spread out. And things that started changing by the time I moved here, obviously, how and where changed. I would say the best thing to do is to make sure it's like actually talk to everybody, because what ends up happening
Hey, just got some footage of you before I turn it off. Just getting some footage of you before I turn it off.